Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the One Fear Per Year podcast. And I am really, really excited today because we have a very special guest who is joining us all the way from Dubai. And apparently it's 8 p.m. where she's at, and it's 8 a.m. where I'm at, but we managed to make it work. Mohita, thank you so much for joining me today on the One Fear Per Year podcast.
Thank you so much, Janice. And it's really great to be a part of your incredible podcast. And I'm so grateful that you have invited me, and I'm privileged to join your podcast. Thank you.
Well, I am so grateful for you because you are a neuroscientist and you know a lot of things about our brain. And I know the brain impacts fear, or fear impacts the brain one way or another. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about how you got into that field. I'm just curious as to what brought you to do neuroscience work.
Uh, Brain as an organ has always fascinated me since childhood. And as I grew up, actually, since childhood, I always wanted to be a neurologist. I wanted to do my medicine in neurology to treat the different disorders of the brain. But as I grew up, I found that there is something more intriguing, brain and mind, and people use this term very synonymously, that brain and mind are the same thing, the mind disorders, the brain disorders. Then I thought, it's such a big, mysterious organ of the universe that it controls your every body function, every body organ. Be it a circulatory system, be it your urinary system, respiratory system, your gut, and everything. And I fell in love with this organ. And slowly, slowly, of course, with the mind. So, cognitive neuropsychology actually fascinated me a lot. And I went on pursuing my PhD in neurosciences, and then my applied postgraduate diploma in neuropsychology, my postdoc. And so here I am.
Woo! That's amazing. And just to think, like you were saying, this one organ that just controls all the facets of our being and our body. So that is really fascinating that you would even know that as a kid. You know, that I always find that interesting. They say when we're children, a lot of the things that we love to do, it's just in us kind of naturally. And sometimes we pursue those, and sometimes we go off and do the thing that like our parents want us to do instead of following what we want to do. So it's just cool that you knew as a child, and now here you are after all these
As a
degrees. And
child, As a child, though, Janice, I wanted to be a neurologist, a medicine doctor, a MD neurology. But then as I grew up, I found that doing research and becoming a neuroscientist will always pave a way for you to research something novel that would benefit the society as a whole. So I felt researching about brain, mind, body, and behavior is something that has actually attracted me and fascinated me, and specifically the cognition, the cognitive abilities, and cognitive functions.
what has been the most surprising thing that you have found out in regards to that with the brain and our behavior? Is there something that just stands out as like when you learned it, you were kind of surprised or shocked?
Yeah, see, to be very honest, it is prevalent in it is prevalent these days that people are using the term brain and mind interchangeably. So people are thinking that mental health is as good as your cognitive health, or brain is as good as your mind, which is not. So brain is actually a hardware and mind is a software, a stream of thoughts, right? But brain is a hardware. It's a physical structured organ that you can actually you can do a surgery, you can scan, and you can even take out as a specimen. So this is what, when I was growing, I mean, because everywhere I found that people are into this thing, that brain and mind and psychology. Psychological disorders are as good as neurological disorders. And for disorders like anxiety and depression, if we just go and do talk therapies and counseling, talk therapies or something, that it will help out to resolve the issue. It helps, and indeed it helps, with inventing out support. It supports inventing out this stuff. But then it is something, the incredible ability of our brain, the neuroplasticity. So the neuroplasticity is something that has actually fascinated me. And no matter whichever stage of your life you are in, whichever disease you're suffering from, if you actually stimulate and triggers your brain neuroplastic mechanism, you can completely rewire it and you can just get rid of your condition. So this is something which has actually fascinated me.
That is fascinating to me too. And since we're talking about fear on this podcast, let's say fear and anxiety and all of that, how can we use neuroplasticity to help us with the fears in our lives and the anxiety that we feel about future events that haven't even happened yet, but we feel like they have, or that they're going to?
You know what? I personally believe that neuroplasticity is something which is very remarkable ability of our brains. So this is a very good thing that we have this thing that we can actually rewire our thinking pattern, limited patterns of thinking. And this actually is because of the incredible ability of our brain, which is neuroplasticity. So, basically, overcoming fear is essentially a process of retraining your brain. And here comes the role of neuroplasticity. So basically, I personally believe that for this, we all have to use tools that work with our biology, the internal biology, the physiology, to give control back to our most important region of the brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, which acts as a CEO. It decides everything, what to do, what not to do. So I think neuroplasticity is one incredible thing. And to achieve the shift from being fearful to, to be non-fearful, or, changing the gears, I would like to share some powerful, neuroscience-backed tips. So my top 3 evidence-based tips are basically, first, the cognitive interrupt. That means, either you name it to tame it. And this isn't just a catchy phrase, it has a neurological basis. So, the moment you feel fear is rising, you can consciously label the emotion and say that this is anxiety. And I'm actually feeling fear or fearful. So, this simple act of naming is a cognitive task that forcibly recruits your prefrontal cortex. You're essentially waking up the CEO of your brain and saying, I need you to look at this. So it creates a tiny but very critical gap between you and the raw emotion. So this simple act activates our PFC, prefrontal cortex, reducing the brain's threat detection system, amygdala. It's the amygdala's power and giving us a crucial moment of space. So here we are actually moving from being in the fear to observing the fear. Second thing I would
Can
like
we
to
pause
mention.
right there real quick, Mohita? So
Sorry?
say that last thing again. It moves us from being in the fear to observing the fear.
Yes,
I think that
observing.
is so important, don't you?
Thank you. And the second thing is, Janice, the physiological reset, where we can have a strategic breathing exercise. We all know that our mind and body are a loop, and we can always calm our mind by calming the body. So I prefer deep, slow breathing like box breathing, which stimulates our ventral vagus nerve, which is our body's natural brake pedal. So we can actually flip the script by consciously changing our breath. Like inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. This pattern is very neuroscientific. It has a neuroscientific basis. It tells the amygdala it's a false alarm, stand down. So when the body calms down, it sends a signal back to the brain that it's safe to resume normal cognitive operations. And next is, the preemptive strike, just simple rehearsal. So if you know you have to perform under pressure, practice under simulated pressure by repeatedly exposing your brain to a mild version of the stressor in a safe context. You're actually essentially training your PFC to stay online. So basically, you are actually building a cognitive roadmap that it can follow even when the amygdala is starting to get loud. So build a fear ladder with gradual exposure. Start with small, manageable steps that challenge your fear. Each success provides your brain with a safety evidence, and this would help in rewiring the circuit, the fear circuitry, through the process of or through exploiting the concept of neuroplasticity. So each time you do this safely, your brain collects evidence and learns safety through experience. This process is called as, actually in psychology, it is called as habituation, which is your conditioning, a type of conditioning, which weakens the neural pathway of fear and strengthens a new pathway of confidence. So I would always say, reframe the fear as an acronym, which is like face everything and rise.
I
So this
love
shifts,
that.
yeah, face everything and rise. So this shifts your mindset from one of avoidance to one of courage and growth.
So this, have you heard of the exposure therapy concept?
Yes, exposure therapy, yeah. Sensitization, that is called as sensitization.
Right. And it reminds me a little bit, although I love what you said about the fear ladder. I think
Mhm.
that's super cool because it's like this visual and it's saying we can do gradual exposure and especially even the simulated one or an imagined one before we actually go into something that we're really scared to do. Let's say public speaking.
Yeah.
You're like terrified. What would be a couple steps? So you would name the fear first, like you said, I have a fear of judgment or a fear of criticism, a fear of failure. So you name it. And then that's the interrupt. Then you would do the box breathing, right? Or a breathing practice. And then after that, you would practice public speaking in a safer environment, but kind of exposing yourself to that. And then you do the fear ladder, kind of the gradual exposure. Is that about right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. See, here the goal is not to eliminate the fear response, but then we have to become skilled at recognizing the hijack, the amygdala hijack, the emotional hijack, and manually switching the controls back to our conscious thinking brain that it's just that it's my feeling and I can always tame it.
Oh, that's so good. I really, really like that. Now, how has fear shown up, let's say, like in the last couple years in your own life where you've had to use these tools for yourself? Has there been an instance where you've had that feeling of like fear and anxiety and you're like, wait a minute, Mohita, I know what I need to do?
Actually, Janice, to be very honest, I'm a little balanced person, but it does happen to all of us, due course of time as we are a social animal. We interact, we live in a society, and we are interdependent on each other in terms of our jobs, in our businesses, our relationships, being a mother, being a parent, being a daughter, and all that. So yes, it happens at times, but knowing the neuroscientific basis of it and how to deal with it, and specifically, I must say that if you believe in any superpower, any universal superpower, spirituality actually plays a great role in sabotaging your fear circuitry. So that gives you strength, mental resilience. And normally, if I'm not feeling well or anxious or depressed at times, what do? I create something. So creativity is something that is, I write an article, I create an art piece, or I cook something, creativity in cuisine as well. So I just create something. Yeah. So that helps me to overcome my fear, my anxiety, And yes, spirituality is one thing that actually helps me and keeps me grounded always.
Absolutely. So it's like this knowledge is power because you have the knowledge of what's going on with the emotion. As you said, the naming it, the knowing what it is, and then creating something. I think that is so true. Like when we're stuck in the anxiety, fear, depression, any of those emotions that are low vibration and downers, and we go out and create something not for the sake of anybody else, but for us to kind of center and ground. I love, and like you said, so you said cooking, you said art. What kind of
Yeah.
art do you create?
I'm an artist. I mean, I can show you, I can share my art pieces with you. So mostly the folk arts of India. So like
That's
Madhubani, you know, and
uh,
even sometimes freehand paintings. Madhubani, there's something called as Lipan art, Madhubani, all those paintings, folk art. So, and else also, I mean, otherwise also, just the freehand painting and all. Yeah.
that's so cool. And yeah, I've found also creating just you feel better. What is that in the brain when we create something? What is going on with the brain circuitry?
See, when you feel good, there is a dopamine serotonin release. You feel motivated. Your motivation, your reward pathway, the basal ganglia, the region in the brain, that gets actually activated. You feel motivated to do something. You feel very good, and then of course there is a lateralization of functions. So you feel, when you create something, you're emotionally very satisfied. So serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, that this something I have created and it belongs to me. I'm the creator. So there's a neurochemical surge, and that helps you to feel motivated and rewarded.
Yes, all of the feel good kind of chemicals
Yeah,
that start
yeah. So
going.
endorphins, yeah, yeah. And see, honestly, Janice, if you can see from the emotional and psychological perspective, emotionally, fear is a signal of perceived danger. But psychologically, it can be either adaptive, that is the healthy fear of touching a hot stove keeps you safe. But then it becomes maladaptive, what we often call as anxiety. When that amygdala, the threat detector region of our brain, that alarm is triggered by perceived or future threats, like as you mentioned very rightly, public speaking or financial worry, loss of job or something like that. So the threat isn't to our immediate physical survival, but actually brain and body reacts to it as if it is real, and uh, it is affecting us very much physically. So this is when fear stops being a protector and starts being in a prison. So therefore, you have seen in anxiety disorder, the fear circuit is overactive, and we all know the hallmark of anxiety is fear and worry and overthinking. So in this case, as I mentioned, amygdala's alarm is too sensitive, and our prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain that helps us to think rationally, logically, and help to reason the thing, but whether it is true or it could be true or it could not be true, that isn't strong enough to shut it off, the amygdala's alarm. So understanding this loop is the first step to learning how to overcome fear, or how to get rid of it, that thought that is actually very perturbing and disturbing. So basically, fear is not the enemy. We wouldn't have survived as a species without it, because you know that it could be adaptive, it could be maladaptive. The key difference lies in proportion and the context of fear. So healthy fear is a rational response to a real and a present danger. It's very sharp, immediate, and it dissipates once the threat is gone. For example, the fear you feel when a car actually serves into your lane is actually very healthy, and it makes you slam on the brakes immediately, right? But debilitating fear or anxiety, on the other hand, is often a disproportionate response to an imagined, uncertain, or a future-based threat. Here, the amygdala and the more evolved logical part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, get their wires crossed. So the prefrontal cortex, which is supposed to be the wise CEO of the brain, calming the amygdala down and providing the context, gets actually hijacked. And that leads to cognitive sabotage. Instead we ruminate, we catastrophize. That's when it starts limiting our lives, holding us back from opportunities, relationships, and growth. So here what we do, we use the word fear, we see the word fear, and in the, particularly as an acronym, if I can, like false evidence appearing real. So from this, when you are being cognitively hijacked, what your body says, your mind and brain says that you are in a reactive mode, not proactive mode. So for whatever is the threat, whatever is the perceived threat that you're thinking, the cognition, our cognitive abilities, our higher order cognitive, our executive functions get hampered, like tunnel vision and working memory hijack, and loss of cognitive flexibility, rational thinking. All these things can get hijacked. So cognitively, what happens? What your body and mind says: forget everything and react. That's the acronym for the fear. Forget everything and react, right? But our goal is actually to switch it from forget everything and react to face everything and rise.
Wow.
Right?
I really like that because it's something in the moment that it's easy to think about. Wait a minute. I need to face everything and rise because I know this is a fear. You know what's going on. You can evaluate as an observer instead of just being in fear and go, is this fear serving me or is it not? Is it aligned or misaligned? Or what'd you say, adaptive or maladaptive?
Maladaptive.
Yes.
As being fearful at times, it's not that you're losing your mind. It's just that your brain is making a very calculated evolutionary trade-off, survival over sophistication,
Survival over sophistication. And then, yeah, but we can go, wait a minute. I'm not going to let this emotion control me. I am going to take charge and see if it's useful to me or not. And this has been such a fascinating conversation. Last question for you, and there's no right or wrong answer, but to you, if I were to ask you for an opposite word of fear, what is your opposite of fear to you?
Courage.
Mm.
Courage. That's courage. I always say a trained brain is a brave brain. So if you ask me, I mean, it's courage that actually help us to overcome fear. You need to take a step. As I mentioned, you can get habituated to it. You can get sensitized to it. Slowly, create a fear ladder. So, I think fear is a reaction and courage is a decision, a voluntary decision, a conscious decision. So your fear circuit is automatic, but your response is not. So for me, by understanding the neuroscience, I would say by understanding the neuroscience, to understanding that fear circuitry, that amygdala, the threat, then the amygdala detected it, then the hypothalamus, then your HPA axis, and your hippocampus and your prefrontal cortex are being hijacked, and your cognitive functions are sabotaged. All this thing happens when the fear circuitry is activated. But then fear is a reaction, always remember, and courage is your decision, conscious decision. So maybe your fear circuit is automatic, but your response is not. I personally say by understanding the neuroscience, you are actively rewiring your brain for courage. And you're not erasing fear, but you're choosing to act in spite of it. And that is the very essence of bravery and courage. So always remember, a brave brain is a trained brain.
And I could not end this episode any better than that. Everybody, if you feel hijacked by fear, know that you can make a decision to walk through those fears, to gain awareness, to be courageous, and to live your best, most amazing life. Thank you for joining me, Mohita. Thank you, everybody.